Ready to dive into some pretty fascinating insights about success and aging.
Okay.
We're going to explore how your strengths actually change over a lifetime and uncover strategies for thriving in the second half of your career.
It sounds good.
A lot of people think decline starts in old age, but what if I told you it can begin much earlier, even in your 30s?
Oh, wow.
Don't worry, we're also going to uncover how to turn this into a huge opportunity for you.
Okay, great.
Our guide today is Arthur Brooks, and his book, From Strength to Strength, Finding Success, Happiness, and Deep Purpose in the Second Half of Life.
One of the things that Brooks really emphasizes is that external achievements, while important, don't necessarily guarantee happiness, especially as we age. In fact, he opens the book with a story about a world-famous man at the pinnacle of his career, flying on a private jet and feeling utterly miserable.
Wow, that's quite an image. I guess it challenges the assumption that if we just achieve X, then we'll finally be happy. Sounds like we might end up on a hedonic treadmill,
Yeah.
constantly chasing that next big thing, but never really finding lasting satisfaction.
Exactly, and that's where it gets really interesting. Brooks dives into the concept of two types of intelligence, fluid and crystallized, and how they play out over a lifetime.
Okay, let's unpack this. I have a feeling a lot of our listeners are familiar with the idea of fluid versus crystallized intelligence, but for anyone who needs a quick refresher.
Sure. Fluid intelligence is all about thinking quickly, solving novel problems, that kind of mental agility.
Yeah.
It's what allows us to adapt to new situations and come up with creative solutions. Think of a brilliant young physicist making groundbreaking discoveries in their 30s. That's fluid intelligence in action.
That makes sense. So where does crystallized intelligence fit in?
Crystallized intelligence, on the other hand, is about the accumulation of knowledge and wisdom over time. It's the deep well of expertise we develop through years of experience, learning, and reflection. A historian, for example, might produce their most insightful work in their 70s, drawing on a lifetime of learning and experience. So while fluid intelligence may peak early, crystallized intelligence keeps growing.
So what does this all mean for us, for our careers, for our lives?
Well, think about the skills you've mastered in your own career. Are they more about quick thinking and adaptability, or a deep well of knowledge and expertise?
Hmm.
Recognizing which type of intelligence drives your success can give you valuable clues about how your career might evolve over time.
That's a great point. I'm starting to see how understanding these two types of intelligence can help us anticipate and even plan for those shifts. It's almost like having a roadmap for the second half of our careers.
Exactly. And Brooks argues that a lot of professionals actually experience a decline earlier than they expect, especially in fields that heavily rely on fluid intelligence.
Makes sense.
Athletes, for example, are often keenly aware of their physical limitations and know they'll likely need a new path by their 30s. But knowledge workers, those of us who rely on our intellect, sometimes have a harder time recognizing that decline.
That's interesting. I think there's a perception that knowledge work is somehow immune to decline. We tend to think, oh, I'm not an athlete, I can keep doing this forever. But the research Brooks cites suggests otherwise. He mentions that even for doctors, peak performance might be in their 30s.
Right, and it varies widely depending on the field. He gives the example of physicists where decline might start around 50, and even entrepreneurs like tech founders who often achieve incredible success in their 20s but might experience a creative decline by 30.
So you're telling me the more success I chase, the less satisfied I might become. That's crazy. What do we do with that information? Does it mean we should just resign ourselves to inevitable decline?
Not at all. Brooks is not saying that decline is a tragedy, but rather an opportunity.
Okay.
It's about recognizing the natural shift from fluid to crystallized intelligence and leveraging the strengths that come with experience and wisdom. It's about embracing that second curve.
Can you give us an example of someone who navigated that transition successfully?
Brooks highlights J.S. Bach. Initially, he was renowned for his innovative compositions in the High Baroque style, but his popularity declined as musical tastes shifted. Instead of clinging to his former glory, Bach embraced a new role as a teacher and mentor, passing on his vast musical knowledge.
It's incredible to think that even someone as brilliant as Bach faced decline, but even more inspiring to see how he turned it into an opportunity to make a different kind of contribution. I think it's a powerful reminder that we don't have to fade into irrelevance as we age.
Absolutely. But to successfully navigate this transition, we need to address the potential pitfalls that can hold us back. One of the biggest hurdles Brooks talks about is success addiction.
Okay, let's dive into that. What exactly is success addiction and how does it impact us as we age?
Success addiction is this relentless pursuit of external validation, money, power, prestige. We get hooked on the dopamine rush of achieving those things, but the satisfaction is fleeting.
Sounds like that hedonic treadmill again. We keep running but never get anywhere.
Exactly. And as we age, our ability to achieve those same levels of success might decline, and that can lead to frustration.
Brooks uses the example of Winston Churchill, who, despite his incredible achievements, struggled with bouts of depression throughout his life.
Right?
It's a poignant reminder that success, as we typically define it, doesn't necessarily equate to happiness. So how do we break free from this cycle?
Brooks suggests we start by examining our why, our deep purpose in life, and shedding activities that don't align with that purpose.
And he provides a practical tool for this, right? The reverse bucket list.
Yes. Instead of focusing on what we want to acquire, Brooks suggests we envision our ideal future selves and then identify what needs to be let go of to become that person.
That's a really thought-provoking idea. I'm curious to hear more about how that works in practice. What are some of the things Brooks suggests we let go of?
One of the biggest things Brooks emphasizes is letting go of our attachment to external validation. He draws on the wisdom of Thomas Aquinas, who identified 4 substitutes for God: money, power, pleasure, and honor.
So it's not that these things are inherently bad, but rather that they become problematic when we elevate them to the status of idols.
Precisely. It's like we're on autopilot, driven by societal expectations and a deep-seated fear of failure, without ever stopping to ask if these things are truly making us happy.
It reminds me of the Buddhist concept of the Four Noble Truths,
Mm.
which highlight the idea that suffering arises from craving and attachment. And I think a lot of us can relate to that, this feeling of constantly striving for more, but never feeling truly content.
Yeah.
So how do we apply these ancient wisdom traditions to our modern lives and careers? Is there a way to break free from these attachments and find a more fulfilling path, especially in the second half of life?
Brooks has a great exercise for that called What's My Idol? He suggests ranking those 4 attachments Aquinas talked about: money, power, pleasure, and honor, in terms of how much they're controlling us. It's a way of becoming more conscious of what's truly driving our decisions. And that's where Brooks brings in the idea of a spiritual life. He argues that a strong inner life can be a powerful antidote to the anxieties of aging.
I'm really interested in hearing more about that. What does Brooks mean by spiritual life, and how does it connect to finding success and fulfillment in the second half of our careers? We've covered a lot of ground in this first section, from the 2 types of intelligence to success addiction, and now this idea of cultivating a spiritual life. There's certainly a lot to think about already.
It is a lot to unpack, and I think it's important to remember that this is a journey, not a destination. We're all going to experience these shifts and transitions in our own way, but understanding the concepts Brooks lays out can help us navigate them with more awareness and intention. Welcome back. Before the break, we were starting to talk about spiritual life, and I think it's a perfect segue from that exercise of identifying our idols.
Right, because if we're trying to chip away at those attachments to money, power, pleasure, or honor, it seems like we need something to fill that void.
Exactly. And Brooks argues that developing a strong inner life, a sense of connection to something bigger than ourselves, can provide that sense of grounding and purpose.
I'm curious to hear more about what that looks like in practice. Doesn't necessarily mean organized religion.
Not at all. Brooks emphasizes that it's about finding meaning and purpose beyond the confines of our professional identities, connecting with a sense of transcendence, however that manifests for each individual. He explores the concept of vanaprastha, a stage in Indian tradition where individuals shift from worldly achievements to spiritual growth and teaching.
Imagine a phase of life where success isn't measured by your job title, but by how much wisdom you pass on to others. That's the essence of vanaprastha, right? It's a beautiful concept.
It is, and Brooks shares his own experience of finding deeper faith at midlife inspired by his wife's spiritual journey. It's a reminder that it's never too late to embark on a path of spiritual exploration.
It's interesting because we often associate spirituality with later life, but Brooks seems to be suggesting that it can be even more valuable in midlife when we're going through these transitions and questioning our priorities.
Absolutely. It's about finding that inner compass to guide us through those uncertain times. And it doesn't have to be about dramatic shifts or life-altering decisions. Brooks also talks about the power of small everyday practices like meditation, mindfulness, or simply spending time in nature. It's about cultivating a sense of presence and gratitude, even amid the challenges we face.
That resonates with me. It's about finding those moments of stillness and reflection that allow us to connect with ourselves in something larger. It's making me think about how we often try to project an image of strength and success, especially in our careers. But Brooks actually suggests that embracing our vulnerabilities can lead to deeper connections.
He tells a great story about going back to college in his late 20s and feeling like an outsider among the traditional students. He ended up connecting with other non-traditional students who also felt out of place, and they formed a strong bond through their shared vulnerability.
It's a reminder that our imperfections and struggles can be sources of strength and connection. It allows us to relate to others on a more human level. It makes me think about the practice of confession in religious traditions. It's not just about admitting wrongdoing, but acknowledging our vulnerabilities and seeking support.
Exactly. It's a powerful act of humility that can create a sense of liberation and connection, freeing us from the burden of trying to maintain a facade of perfection.
And speaking of transitions, Brooks dives into the concept of liminality, that uncomfortable in-between stage when we're letting go of the old and haven't yet found the new. It can feel like being cast out into the falling tide, right? Like the waters are turbulent and unpredictable, but you also know that's when you might get the biggest catches.
That's a great analogy. Brooks describes it as a period of both discomfort and opportunity, a time when we're shedding old identities but haven't fully formed new ones.
And it doesn't always have to be a crisis like the classic midlife crisis trope. It sounds like it's more about embracing the uncertainty and trusting that the journey itself will lead us to where we need to be, even if we can't see the destination clearly yet.
Right. Brooks actually cites research showing that most people don't experience a major negative emotional event during midlife, even if they're going through big changes. He emphasizes that liminality is a time to reassess priorities, explore possibilities, and rediscover what truly matters.
It makes me think of that saying, sometimes you have to get lost to find yourself. Brooks also shares some inspiring examples of people who successfully navigated liminality, right? Like Chip Conley, the hotelier who reinvented himself at Airbnb.
Yes, Conley's story is a testament to the fact that it's never too late to reinvent ourselves and find new meaning and purpose.
It's so encouraging to hear stories like that.
Mm.
It gives us permission to question our own assumptions about success and what we should be doing with our lives, especially as we get older.
Exactly. And Brooks offers some really practical advice for anyone going through a transition, whether it's a career change, a relationship shift, or just a general sense of feeling stuck.
Okay, let's hear it. What are Brooks's key tips for navigating liminality successfully?
First, he emphasizes knowing your marshmallow, your true motivations beyond external rewards. This goes back to finding your why, understanding what truly fulfills you.
Once you know your marshmallow, the work itself becomes the reward.
Exactly. Second, Brooks stresses that the work we choose must be deeply interesting to us. It should challenge us intellectually and emotionally.
It seems like passion and curiosity are essential ingredients here. When we're genuinely engaged in what we're doing, it doesn't feel like work.
That's a great point. Brooks also says to embrace the unknown and not expect a straight line in our career transitions. It's about being open to experimenting, exploring different paths.
It's about the journey, not just the destination. And finally, Brooks reminds us that we're not alone in this process. There are resources and communities out there to support us.
He talks about seeking out mentors, connecting with peers who are going through similar experiences, and tapping into the collective wisdom of those who've been there before.
It's like building a support system for our second curve, recognizing that we don't have to figure it all out on our own. We've talked about a lot of deep and potentially transformative ideas in this section. From cultivating a spiritual life to embracing vulnerability and navigating the often uncertain waters of liminality, Brooks offers a roadmap for finding not just success, but true fulfillment in the second half of life.
He challenges us to rethink our definition of success, to move beyond chasing external validation and embrace a more holistic approach to living a fulfilling life.
It's almost like he's giving us permission to rewrite the script on aging. We'll be back after a short break to wrap up our deep dive into Arthur Brooks's insightful work. Welcome back to our deep dive into Arthur Brooks's From Strength to Strength. We've been exploring the idea of a second curve in life, where we shift our focus from achieving external success to cultivating deeper meaning and purpose as we age.
And one of the most compelling points Brooks makes is that the second curve isn't about fading into irrelevance, but rather about embracing a new chapter of growth and contribution.
It's almost like he's giving us permission to redefine what success looks like in the second half of life, to move beyond those traditional markers of money, power, and prestige.
Exactly. He encourages us to shift our focus from striving to thriving, from chasing external rewards to cultivating inner peace and contentment. And he reminds us that this is a journey we don't have to take alone. There are wisdom traditions, communities, and resources available to guide and support us along the way.
So as we wrap up our deep dive, let's bring it back to you, the listener. What resonated most with you today? What idol might you need to chip away at? Is it a relentless pursuit of achievement? Maybe a fear of letting go of your job title? Or perhaps an over-reliance on external validation?
Think about the relationships you might want to nurture. Have you been so focused on climbing the ladder that you've neglected the people who matter most?
Yeah.
Remember, Brooks highlights those close connections as the strongest predictor of happiness and health in later life.
We've explored a lot of profound ideas today, but the key takeaway is that decline is inevitable, but it doesn't have to be a tragedy. By shifting our focus from fleeting achievements to deeper meaning and connection, we can unlock a whole new kind of success and fulfillment.
And it's important to remember that you are not your job title, your achievements, or even your age. You are a complex, evolving being, and your greatest strengths may yet lie ahead of you.
Perhaps the greatest strength of all is the willingness to let go of what no longer serves us and embrace the unknown with curiosity and courage. What small step can you take today to start building your own second curve? Maybe it's having a conversation with a loved one, revisiting a long-forgotten passion, or simply taking some time for quiet reflection. Remember, the journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step.